Alright, back with chapter 24. It says this. David's census. Again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against him, saying, Go number Israel and Judah. So the king said to Job, the commander of the army, who was with him, Go through all the tribes of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, and number the people, that I may know the number of the people. But Job said to the king, The Lord your God, Jesus Christ of course, add to the people 100 times as many as they are. Well, the eyes of my Lord and king will see it. But why does my Lord the king delight in this thing? But the king's words prevailed against Job and the commanders of the army. So Job and the commanders of the army went out from the presence of the king to number the people of Israel. They crossed the Jordan and began from Aurora from the sea that is in the middle of the valley towards Gad and on to Jazer. And they came to Gilead and to Kadesh in the land of the Hittites, and they came to Dan. From Dan they went around to Sidon, and came to the fortress of Tyre, and to all the cities of the Hivites and the Canaanites, and they went out to the Negev of Judah at Beersheba. So when they had gone through all the land, they came to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days, and Job gave the sum of the numbering of the people to the king. In Israel there were 800,000 valiant men who drew the sword, and the men in Judah were about 500,000, about 500,000. The Lord's judgment of David's sin. But David's heart struck him after he had numbered the people, and David said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done, but now, O Lord, please take away the iniquity or the sin of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. And when David arose in the morning, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and say to David, Thus says the Lord, 3 things I offer you, choose one of them, that I may do it to you. So Gad came to David and told him and said to him, Shall 3 years of famine come to you in your land, or will you flee 3 months before your foes while they pursue you, or shall there be 3 days pestilence in your land, or disease? Now consider it and decide what answer I shall return to him who sent me. Then David said to Gad, I am in great distress, let us all fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but let me not fall into the hand of man. So the Lord sent a pestilence or a disease on Israel from the morning until the appointed time, and there died the people from Dan to Beersheba, about 70,000 men. And when the angel stretched out his hand towards Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord relented from the calamity and said to the angel who was working destruction among the people, It is enough. Now stay your hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. And then David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who was striking the people, and said, Behold, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Please let your hand be against me and against my father's house. David builds an altar. And Gad came that day to David and said to him, Go up and raise an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up to Gad's word, as the Lord commanded. And when Araunah looked down, and he saw the king and his servants coming on towards him, and Araunah went out and paid homage to the king with his face to the ground. And Araunah said, Why has my lord the king come to his servant? David said, To buy the threshing floor from you in order to build an altar to the Lord, that the plague may be averted from the people. Then Araunah said to David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Here are the oxen for their burnt offering, and the threshing sledges, and the yokes of the oxen for their wood. All this, O King Araunah, gives to the king. And Araunah said to the king, May the Lord your God accept you. It's of course Christ. But the king said to Araunah, No, but I will buy it from you for a price. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar to the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. The Lord responded to the plea of the land, and the plague was averted from Israel. So this is the last chapter of 2 Samuel. It talks about David's census of Israel. He's counting how many people he has in Israel and how many men in Israel he has to fight wars. And then the Lord's judgment of David's sin that he has committed. And of course, David builds an altar to God for God to forgive him, for what David did, and so that David can worship him at the altar. And they have a map here. It says David's census 975 BC. David ordered his commander Job to take a census of all the people in the regions in which he exercised direct control. The reason for the census was probably to assess David's military capacity. Job's men left Jerusalem and began the census at Aroer on the edge of the Arnon River. They progressed to Jazer near Rabbah to Gilead and on to Dan. After turning towards Sidon and the fortress of Tyre, they headed to Beersheba and the Negev of Judah, and then they returned to Jerusalem. Now, the general route of the census takers, they began, like I said, over in, they basically began up around Lebanon. They go all the way down to southern Israel, over to Jordan, and back up to where Lebanon's at today. And this is the census that you can see that map right there. That's the census. That was David's census to count to see how many people he had to fight wars, pretty much. So that's chapter 24, and I'll be right back with 1 Kings here in a minute.